Most people in Aethelburg have never really seen the color blue. They've seen the sterile flat azure of a transit line indicator or the washed-out cerulean of a state-sanctioned skyscape projection. But they've never seen the deep, impossible cobalt of a midnight ocean, the kind that holds forgotten stars in its depths. I have. I see it every time I close my eyes. And it's a problem. My designation is Scrubber 734. My function is simple. I sit in a sterile white cubicle, one of thousands, in the lower levels of the central data nexus. My job is to clean. All day I sift through corrupted data fragments, the digital grime of a perfectly efficient city. Stray code, misaligned packets, garbled transmissions. I find them, I wipe them. I maintain the clean, white, silent perfection of Aethelburg's information stream. It's a life devoid of color, of noise, of meaning. It's the perfect place to hide. The authority, our benevolent caretakers, believe that emotional volatility is the root of all conflict. So they eliminated it. Our moods are regulated by atmospheric chemical balances. Our thoughts are guided by subliminal data streams. Our history. Well, our history has been optimized. All the messy, inefficient parts, the wars, the passion, the art, the chaos, it was all archived, wiped from the collective consciousness and stored away, leaving us placid, productive, and hollow. But data, like memory, can never be truly erased. It just breaks apart, degrades, and festers. And sometimes, when I reach out with my neural interface to scrub a particularly nasty fragment of code, I touch something more. A ghost in the machine. A memory. Today, it was the memory of a laugh, not the polite, regulated chuckle you might hear in a nutrition hall. This was a wild, uninhibited, throat-aching laugh of pure joy. It belonged to a woman with hair like spun copper, dancing on a beach of black sand, her feet kicking up sparks of bioluminescent algae. The sky behind her wasn't the pale, uniform dome of Aethelburg. It was a swirling chaos of violet and orange as two suns set at once. I felt her joy like a physical blow, a warmth spreading through my chest that was so alien I almost recoiled. Then with a flicker it was gone, leaving only the hum of the server banks and the soft, rhythmic pulse of the indicator light on my console. My biomonitor flagged a spike in serotonin levels. A warning flashed in my peripheral vision. Emotional anomaly detected. Please recalibrate. I took a deep breath, forcing the sterile air into my lungs, pushing the ghost of that laugh back into the darkness where it belonged. That's my secret. That's my curse. I'm not just Scrubber 734. Before this, I had another name. I was Elias, and I was the authorities' greatest success. I was the living archive. They didn't just store the forbidden history on data crystals. They poured it all into me. Every last drop of humanity's chaotic, beautiful, terrible past. I was designed to be a perfect, silent vault. But the memories, they don't just sit there. They scream, they sing, they bleed. I carry the love of 1 billion forgotten souls, the rage of 1,000 vanquished armies, the creative genius of entire civilizations turned to dust. The weight of it broke me. 3 years ago, I escaped, faked my own data death, and buried myself here, in the one place they would never look for a living library, the city's digital sanitation department. I spend my days wiping away the very thing I am, praying no one ever finds me. The day my world ended for the second time started like any other. Scrub, wipe, regulate, repeat, until a priority broadcast overrode every screen in the Nexus. The face of the curator, the emotionless head of the Historical Purity Council, filled my vision. Her features were perfectly symmetrical, her voice a calm, synthesized monotone. "Citizens," she announced, "a final reminder. This evening we will conduct a public harmonization for the betterment of the community." The screen split to show a young woman sitting in a white, sterile room. She had dark, inquisitive eyes that seemed to refuse the placid glaze of a proper citizen. Her name was Lyra. My breath hitched. I knew her. Not personally, but I knew her work. Lyra was a resonance artist. She created auditory sculptures, complex symphonies of frequency and vibration that were broadcasted across the city's public soundscape. Her work was abstract, officially sanctioned as a productivity aid. But people felt something from her art, a strange melancholy, a fleeting sense of longing, an echo of emotions they didn't have names for. Her music made the city feel less empty. The artist known as Lyra, the curator continued, has been found to be a source of significant emotional contagion. Her work has been generating aberrant resonance patterns, causing systemic instability. A diagram appeared, showing Lyra's sound waves next to a wildly fluctuating graph labeled civic emotional state. This is not a punishment, the curator assured us, her voice devoid of any real assurance. It is a healing. Her creative faculties will be realigned, her emotional centers harmonized with the civic standard. She will be made whole again. Made empty, I thought. The harmonization process was a public spectacle, a gentle form of terror. It was a psychic lobotomy, broadcast for all to see. They would sever her connection to whatever muse she drew from, leaving her a hollow, smiling shell. But it was the image that came next that stopped my heart. Behind the curator, a complex waveform flickered on a display. It was the core resonance signature of Lyra's latest piece. It was chaotic, beautiful, and achingly familiar. I'd seen that pattern before. Not in the real world, but in my own head. It was the mathematical equivalent of the twin sunset over the black sand beach. The laugh, the joy. She wasn't creating something new. She was remembering. Somehow, through her art, she was tapping into the archive I carried in my soul. And the authority had noticed. They weren't just silencing an artist. They were trying to erase the last accidental echo of the truth. And in that moment, 3 years of hiding, of scrubbing, of pretending to be nothing, it all felt like a coward's bargain. I watched Lyra's defiant eyes on the screen, and I heard the laughter of the woman on the beach. And for the first time in a long time, the memories inside me didn't just scream. They roared. For the next few hours, I was a ghost. I moved through the nexus with a purpose I hadn't felt since my escape. The harmonization was scheduled to take place on the top floor in the Celestial Dome, a grand amphitheater with a panoramic view of the sanitized city. Security would be absolute. No one gets into the Celestial Dome without clearance. But I didn't need clearance. I had something better. I had the schematics, not the current ones, but the original blueprints from before the authorities' optimization. I had the memories of the men who built this place, who knew its secrets. I slipped into a maintenance conduit, the air thick with the smell of ozone and recycled air. My neural interface, usually firewalled to a crawl, was now open, the memories flowing freely. I saw the ghost of a long-dead engineer pointing out a flaw in the ventilation shaft's security grid. I felt the pride of a foreman as he installed a hidden access panel behind a power converter. These men, their thoughts, their knowledge, they were my allies, my army of the dead. I emerged behind a nutrient paste dispenser on the executive level. The air here was different, thinner, carrying a faint antiseptic scent. Guards in stark white armor stood at every junction, their biosigns perfectly calm, their movements synchronized. They were less like men and more like components in a machine. Fighting them was impossible. But I didn't have to fight them. I just had to overwhelm them. The harmonization was already in progress. On a massive screen, I could see Lyra strapped to a large throne-like chair. A gleaming silver halo descended toward her head. The curator was speaking, her voice echoing through the dome. We embrace this unity. We shed the burdens of chaotic thought. We find peace and similarity. I found my access point, a central data port for the dome's sensory systems. I pressed my palm against it, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't push the memories away. I let them out. Just a trickle at first. The scent of rain on hot asphalt. The taste of salt and lemons. The feeling of cool grass on bare feet. I pushed these simple, forgotten sensations through the data port and into the guard's environmental regulators. The first guard stopped, tilting his head. His internal sensors would be telling him the air was pure, but his mind, his ancestral animal mind, was smelling a summer storm. Another guard's hand went to his helmet, a confused look crossing his face as he tasted something other than recycled nutrients for the first time in his life. Their perfect synchronization faltered. It was a glitch in the matrix, a tiny crack in the white wall of their reality, and it was all the opening I needed. I stepped out from behind the dispenser and walked toward the entrance to the dome. As the guards turned, raising their pulse rifles, I opened the floodgates. I didn't give them a battle. I gave them a birthday party, a memory of a child's 5th birthday to be exact. The chaotic joy, the bright colors of paper hats, the sugary taste of cake, the sound of off-key singing. I pushed the entire overwhelming sensory experience directly into their neural processors. They collapsed. Not from injury, but from sheer cognitive dissonance. Their brains, conditioned for placid order, couldn't handle the sudden, violent influx of pure, unadulterated happiness. One guard was weeping, the other was laughing uncontrollably. Neither of them even saw me walk past them and into the celestial dome. The scene inside was one of sterile grandeur. Hundreds of authority officials sat in tiered seats, their faces placidly observing the procedure. Lyra was in the center, the halo just inches from her scalp. The curator saw me first. Her perfectly composed face registered the faintest flicker of, not shock but surprise, an unscheduled variable. "Cease," I said. My voice, rusty from years of disuse, sounded loud in the hushed amphitheater. The curator's gaze was cold. "You are not authorized. You are a data anomaly." "I am," I said, walking down the central aisle, every eye in the room now on me. "And so is she." I gestured to Lyra. Her eyes were wide with a mixture of terror and confusion. "You're erasing the last true thing in this entire city." "You speak of chaos," the curator said, signaling her personal guard. 2 massive figures in obsidian armor stepped forward. "We offer harmony." I looked at the 2 guards. They were elite. Overwhelming them with simple memories wouldn't work. They were shielded, hardened, so I gave them something harder. I reached deep into the archive, past the joy and the love and into the darkness. I gave them war, the memory of a trench, filled with mud and fear, the scream of artillery, the metallic taste of blood, the desperate, clawing terror of a man watching his world burn. I didn't just show it to them. I made them live it. They screamed, dropping their weapons and clawing at their helmets, their minds trapped in a century-old battlefield. The entire dome was in chaos now. The placid expressions of the officials were cracking, replaced by the ugly, unfamiliar face of fear. In the confusion, I ran to the central platform. I ripped the halo from its moorings and smashed the control panel with my fist. The machine died with a shower of sparks. I undid Lyra's restraints. She stared at me, her dark eyes searching my face. "Who? What are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "A memory," I said, pulling her to her feet. "And we need to leave, now." We ran, leaving behind a room full of the most powerful people in Aethelburg, drowning in the first real emotions they had ever felt. The undercore of Aethelburg was a place that officially didn't exist. It was the city's subconscious, a labyrinth of grimy maintenance tunnels, abandoned transit lines, and forgotten machinery from eras before the authorities' optimization. The air was thick with the smell of rust, coolant, and decay. Here, the clean white aesthetic of the world above gave way to exposed pipes, weeping condensation, and the slow, steady drip of water echoing in the darkness. It was the perfect place to get lost. We found refuge in the husk of an old geothermal power station. The massive turbines were silent, covered in decades of dust like sleeping metal giants. Lyra huddled by a dying emergency light, wrapping her thin arms around herself. She hadn't said a word since we'd escaped, her mind clearly reeling from the sudden violent shattering of her reality. "They'll be hunting us," she finally said, her voice a near whisper. "They'll be confused first," I replied, jimmying open a maintenance locker, searching for supplies. I gave the Celestial Dome enough emotional trauma to keep their regulators busy for a week. But yes, they will hunt us. I found 2 nutrient packs and a water filter. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I offered her a pack. She ignored it. "What you did back there? The guards. It was like you weaponized feelings." She looked at me, her eyes demanding an answer. "What are you?" I sat down across from her, the decaying metal of the turbine groaning under my weight. There was no point in hiding anymore. "My name is Elias. 3 years ago, I was designated the primary echo of the Central Archive." Her brow furrowed. "The archive? But that's just a data repository." "That's the lie," I explained, the words feeling strange and heavy in my mouth. "You can't just delete history. It's not data, it's experience. It has weight. The authority discovered that if they truly wiped it, it left a void, a psychic vacuum that drove people mad. So they found another solution. They created a vessel to contain it, a living library." I tapped my temple. "Me?" Her eyes widened in dawning comprehension. "All of it? The whole history of everything?" "Everything they deemed inefficient," I clarified. "War, art, faith, passion, grief, love, the complete chaotic, contradictory mess of human experience. I hold it all." "So my music," she began, "was an echo of an echo," I finished for her. "Somehow, your mind is tuned to the same frequency as the archive. You weren't composing, you were excavating. You were pulling emotions from me across the entire city and turning them into sound. You were reminding people of things they weren't supposed to know they'd forgotten. That's why they had to silence you." She stared into the darkness, processing the impossible. "All my life, I've felt these things, these phantom emotions. Melodies would just appear in my head. I thought I was just different." "You are," I said, and the sincerity in my voice surprised even me. "You're a translator." A long silence stretched between us, filled only by the rhythmic dripping of water. She finally looked at me, a new kind of intensity in her eyes. Not fear, but a ravenous curiosity. The artist in her was overriding the terror. "Show me," she said. "Show you what?" "A memory, a real one. I want to feel it. I need to understand." "No," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "You don't. You can't comprehend the scale of it. A direct touch. It could break your mind." "My mind was about to be harmonized into a blank slate," she countered, a spark of defiance returning to her face. "I think I'll take my chances. Please, Elias. I'm not afraid." And that was the thing. I looked at her and I believed her. She wasn't afraid. She was an artist staring at the ultimate unopened box of paints. How could I deny her? I hesitated, the archive inside me churning with 1,000 warnings. But the part of me that was still Elias, the man who had been a prisoner for so long, wanted someone else to see, to bear witness. "All right," I whispered. "Just one. A quiet one." I moved closer, sitting beside her on the cold floor. "Give me your hand." She extended it, her fingers trembling slightly. I took her hand in mine. Her skin was cool to the touch. I closed my eyes, sifting through the maelstrom in my head, looking for something safe, something simple. I found it. A small, perfect memory, preserved like an insect in amber. "Just relax," I murmured. "Don't fight it." I released it. For Lyra, the grimy power station dissolved. The smell of rust was replaced by the scent of baking bread and wildflowers. The darkness gave way to the soft, golden light of a late afternoon, filtering through the window of a small, sun-drenched cottage. She saw a young man with flour on his cheek, his hands deftly kneading dough on a wooden table. A woman, her belly swollen with child, entered the room, placing a hand on his shoulder. He turned and smiled, a smile of such profound, uncomplicated love that it felt like a physical warmth. He leaned in and kissed her, a long, gentle kiss that spoke of shared years and quiet contentment. There was no grand passion, no epic drama. There was only this, a small, perfect moment of peace and love. Lyra gasped, her eyes flying open. She was back in the undercore, but a single tear was tracing a path through the grime on her cheek. I felt that she whispered, her voice thick with awe. I felt his love for her, as if it were my own. She looked at our joined hands, then up at my face. It's all in you? All of that? I nodded, my own throat tight. It had been years since I'd shared a memory with anyone. The connection felt grounding, real. She didn't let go of my hand. Instead, her fingers intertwined with mine. In her eyes, I no longer saw a terrified citizen. I saw a partner. They're not just hunting a fugitive and a dissident artist anymore. Are they? She said, a strange, fierce smile on her face. They're hunting their entire history, and we're the only two people in the world who can remember it. The relative peace of the undercore was a temporary illusion. We knew the curator wouldn't stay disoriented for long. The authorities' greatest strength was its ability to restore order. We moved constantly, using my inherited knowledge of the city's hidden ways to stay one step ahead. During our flight, a strange symbiosis formed between us. I was the library and she was the reader. She would ask for things, not out of morbid curiosity, but with a specific, artistic hunger. Show me courage, she'd whisper, as we navigated a high, narrow gantry over a bottomless chasm. And I would share with her the memory of a lone protester standing before a line of tanks. She would straighten her back, her fear receding, and walk across the beam as if it were a garden path. Show me ingenuity, she'd ask, when we found our way blocked by a sealed bulkhead. I would give her the mind of a master locksmith from a forgotten age, and her nimble fingers would coax the ancient tumblers into place. In return, she gave me something I hadn't realized I'd lost: context. The memories inside me were just raw data, a chaotic storm of sensation. But she saw the patterns. She found the beauty in the sorrow, the hope in the despair. She was giving my burden a shape, a meaning. We were falling for each other, not in a rush of stolen kisses in the dark, but in the slow, profound intimacy of sharing 1,000 lives. We were becoming two parts of a single soul. The authority found us on the 7th day, not with scanners or troops, but with silence. We were in an abandoned water filtration plant when the usual hum of the city above us ceased. The dripping stopped. The air itself seemed to grow still and heavy. They've isolated this sector, I said, my voice low. Cut it off from the grid. They're boxing us in. Then her voice filled the space, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. The curator. Not broadcasted, but a tight, focused psychic projection. I felt a familiar pressure at the base of my skull. They were trying to access the archive through me. Elias, the voice said, calm and impossibly vast. Your regression is complete. It is time to come home. I shielded Lyra with my body, putting myself between her and the direction of the psychic probe. Leave her alone, I projected back, a messy, emotional shout compared to her surgical precision. The artist is not a target, the curator's thought voice replied. She is the key. Your initial integration was unstable. Your consciousness rejected the sheer volume of the archive. But her unique resonance, she can act as a buffer, a focusing lens. With her help, we can fully and permanently integrate you back into the system. You will be the perfect archive, and she will be your interpreter. Together, you will bring true, lasting peace to Aethelburg. They weren't going to kill her. They were going to use her. Enslave her mind to enslave mine. In the center of the chamber, a portal shimmered into existence, a perfect circle of white light. Come, the curator commanded. Your purpose awaits. Lyra clutched my arm, her knuckles white. Don't listen to her, Elias. There's nowhere left to run, I whispered. I could feel squads of their elite psychic enforcers, the silent guard, closing in on our position. They wouldn't use weapons. They would just take our minds apart. Her eyes blazed. Then we don't run. We broadcast, understanding dawned. Lyra, what you're suggesting, you said it yourself, I'm a translator. An amplifier, she insisted, her voice gaining strength. They've isolated this sector, right? Created a closed network. What if we don't just give them a memory? What if we give them everything? It was suicide. The psychic feedback from unleashing the entire archive at once, unfiltered. It would be like setting off a nuclear bomb in my own mind. It wouldn't just empty me. It would incinerate my consciousness. It will kill you, Elias, she said softly, as if reading my thoughts. I know, I replied. This is not a choice you get to make alone, she said, her fingers finding mine in the darkness. Let me help you. Let me be your anchor. Let me share the load. It could destroy you too, I warned. I'd rather be destroyed as myself than live as their puppet, she stated, her conviction absolute. Let them have their harmony. I looked at her, at the fierce, beautiful soul who had seen the whole messy history of humanity and wasn't afraid. The choice was clear. My purpose wasn't to hold the past. It was to let it go. Okay, I said, a strange calm settling over me. We turned to face the shimmering white portal, not as fugitives, but as revolutionaries. We walked towards it, hand in hand. The curator was waiting for us on the other side, in a vast, white, featureless space that I recognized as a psychic construct, the antechamber of the authorities' central consciousness. The silent guards stood in a circle around her, their faces hidden behind mirrored helmets. A wise decision, the curator said, her lips not moving. We're not here to surrender, Lyra projected, her own mental voice surprisingly strong and clear, laced with the resonance of her music. I closed my eyes and reached for her mind. Are you ready? I'm with you, she sent back, her thought laced with the memory of the kiss in the cottage. With love, the curator sensed the shift. What are you doing? Cease this aberrant behavior! But it was too late. I opened the floodgates. Through Lyra, the archive didn't just pour out, it sang. It became a symphony of existence. The first movement was creation, the birth of stars, the cooling of planets, the first spark of life in the primordial ooze. The silent guards staggered as they experienced the crushing weight of geological time. The second movement was love, a billion love stories at once. The nervous first touch, the quiet companionship of old age, the fierce protection of a parent for a child, the heartbreak of betrayal. The psychic chamber itself seemed to warm, the stark white walls blushing with color. The curator shrieked, a soundless psychic scream as she was assaulted by the one force her logic could not compute. The third movement was chaos, war, famine, discovery, art, revolution, prayer, the charge of cavalry, the quiet desperation of a scientist on the verge of a breakthrough, the frenzied brushstrokes of a mad painter, the defiant shout of a rebel. It was everything at once, a tidal wave of human experience in all its terrible, glorious contradiction. I felt my own consciousness begin to fray, the sheer energy of the release tearing me apart. But Lyra was there. She held on to me, her mind a steady, brilliant light in the storm. She took the raw chaos and gave it harmony, weaving it into a single, galaxy-spanning broadcast. We weren't just pushing it into the curator's mind. We were pushing it through her, using her as a psychic antenna to send it to every single citizen in Aethelburg. In a sterile apartment, a man tasting his nutrient paste suddenly tasted his grandmother's soup, a recipe lost for 5 generations, and he began to weep without knowing why. In a transit car, a woman looked at the stranger across from her and felt a sudden, inexplicable surge of empathy, of shared humanity. In the data centers, the schools, the factories, the white walls of Aethelburg were being painted with the invisible, vibrant colors of memory. The psychic construct shattered. We were back in the filtration plant. The silent guard lay on the ground, catatonic. The curator was gone, her consciousness presumably blasted across the network along with the archive. The feedback loop hit me like a physical blow. I felt the last of the memories, the laughter, the sunsets, the courage, the love, all of it rushing out of me, leaving a vast, silent, peaceful emptiness in its wake. My knees buckled. Lyra caught me. I looked up at her, my vision blurring at the edges. "Elias?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. I searched my mind for the memory of the cottage, for the taste of salt and lemons, for the roar of the trench. There was nothing. Just silence. The perfect, clean, white silence I had once craved. I was empty. "It's gone," I whispered, a strange, sad smile on my face. All of it. It's theirs now. I looked at Lyra, at her beautiful, concerned face, and I realized with a jolt that I could remember her. Our time in the undercore, her hand in mine, her fierce defiance. That was mine. Our story was the first new memory in the empty library of my mind. Before I collapsed into darkness, that thought was my last. I was finally free. 1 year later, the twin suns of Lyra IV cast a golden light across a valley filled with silver-blue grass that rippled like water in the breeze. A modest dwelling built from living wood and local stone nestled against the foothills. On a wide front porch, I held a tiny bundle wrapped in soft fabric. The infant had my dark eyes, but his skin, when it caught the light just right, shimmered with a faint violet undertone, an echo of a life I could no longer remember, but somehow still felt. "He's awake," Lyra said, coming out of the house. Aethelburg was a lifetime away. After the Great Awakening, as the history books were already calling it, the city had descended into beautiful, vibrant chaos. The authority crumbled overnight, its power based on a placidity that no longer existed. In the confusion, a resistance cell Lyra had unknowingly inspired with her music found us and smuggled us off-world to this quiet, forgotten colony. Lyra sat beside me, leaning her head on my shoulder. She was the official custodian of the archive now, though it no longer existed in one person. It was everywhere, in everyone. She helped run a council that was guiding the citizens of Aethelburg as they grappled with their newfound emotional and historical inheritance. The city was messy now, loud, full of arguments and art and terrible mistakes and breathtaking moments of grace. It was alive. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. "About him," I said, looking down at our son. "What we should name him?" "I have an idea," she said, her eyes twinkling. "Let's call him Kai." In an ancient dialect I shouldn't have known, it meant story. I was no longer the echo. The memories were gone. My only superhuman ability now was being able to get our son to sleep through the night. I was just Elias again. But my mind was no longer empty. It was slowly filling up with new memories. The memory of building our home with my own 2 hands. The memory of Lyra's laughter, which was now a real and present sound, not a ghost in a machine. The memory of holding my son for the first time. These new memories were quiet. They were small. But they were mine. Our son stirred, his tiny hand wrapping around my finger. He looked up at me with eyes that knew nothing of sterile white rooms or forgotten histories. His story was just beginning, and for the first time in my life, so was mine. We were living proof that the past should never be a prison. It should be a foundation. And upon it, you can build something entirely new. The journey back from the silence has been long, but every day Lyra helps me remember what it means to be human. Not by showing me the past of others, but by building a future with me. And I think that's a story worth remembering. If our story resonated with you, if you believe in the power of memory and the importance of our shared history, then help us keep these stories alive. Like this video, leave a comment sharing a memory that's important to you, and subscribe for more journeys into the heart of what makes us who we are. Thank you for listening.